We will stick, gentlemen, with the Eastern Conference Finals because after struggling to figure out Miami's zone in the first 2 games of the series, the Celtics much more effective against it in Game 3. So, leave you a little context here. Boston shot 30% against the zone in the first 2 games, 59% in Game 3. Richard, how'd they do it? How'd they hack the zone?
Well, I think they were a little bit more patient. I think the spacing, getting to the key spots, like the zone is not complicated. Jason Williams did an amazing breakdown on Countdown about the zone. I actually texted him and talked about how impressive it was because all you have to do is get patient. You have to work together. This is not a search out my shot. This is not a I'm going to go ISO. You have to work. You have to be on a string together. And the Boston Celtics, and again, adding Gordon Hayward to that, a guy that understands what Brad Stevens is doing. He is a movement guy in general, and he's not constantly searching out a shot. I think the combination of all those things slowed them down, and they did a much better job.
Well, RJ, Rachel, the 2 things for me, yes, I would say, first of all, having Gordon Hayward, another passer, is great to have for their offense. But the 2 keys for me was having a body moving through the center of the paint. That person has to be accounted for one. For 2, they're not just throwing the ball and it's moving around the perimeter. The ball is actually being penetrated into the center of the defense where they have to collapse and you're making plays. So not only are guys running through the paint where you have to account for it with the ball movement, like you said, RJ, but the ball is being dribbled into the center of the paint, finding open guys or getting layups. And now guys are kind of on a swivel and you have to make a decision, and that's tough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I was a little surprised it took the Celtics into the 3rd game to make this adjustment, just because the Heat played more zone defense than anyone else in the NBA all season by a lot. So it was not a shock. I know they didn't show it in some of the early rounds of the playoffs, but certainly them breaking it out was not a surprise to someone who's as good at scouting his opponent as Brad Stevens. But personnel-wise, they did not have Gordon back until Game 3. So that might have been, as you guys note, one of the keys, even if they knew they were expecting it. I am so fascinated to see how these teams come out tomorrow night. I can't call it. We'll talk to you guys on tomorrow's show about, hey, make a prediction. But I think what's so fun about this Heat-Celtics series is we're 3 games in, and I have no idea who's going to win, which is the best way sports can happen.
And that's the beauty of it. Yeah, it's going to go back and forth.
Right. All right. I do want to get to the Clippers. They're not here in Orlando anymore, but according to The Athletic, Paul George gave the Clippers some words of encouragement in the locker room after they were eliminated from the playoffs, just wanting them to commit to making another run together. And according to the report, that speech was met with some eye rolls. Now, PG does have a player option after next season. So does Kawhi. So those 2 are only committed for 1 more season, although they could be there much longer. Vince, what do you think is Paul George's future with the Clippers?
I think it's a wait-and-see thing, honestly. This team is right there. They're on the cusp of a championship opportunity. They're loaded. You can add another piece or 2 to upgrade. But their team right now is very good. They didn't have a great run in the playoffs. Well, let me say they didn't have a great run against Denver in the playoffs. PG didn't play particularly well. But I think this is a wait-and-see moment, in my opinion. I think the organization next year looks and see how the first half of the season goes, and they'll make a decision from there. I think you get the vibe and it's like, maybe we should move on or not, because Paul George is Paul George, and that's a piece. If you keep him, he will do for your team. If not, you can get some pieces for him as well.
Now, look, this is the funny thing about the Clippers is that as much as they were like, we're anti the glitz and glamour, we're the grit and grind, but you advertise the grit and grind. You advertise that kind of like work ethic, and you really push that narrative almost in a manner of a Hollywood kind of storyline. And so, you know, when I look at the way the Clippers are built and I look at the way they want to play, I think Paul George is a very good fit. And we've talked so much about the, you know, last dance and all of these NBA dynasties. It takes time to build it. Yes, we are impatient here in 2020 and everybody expects this, but understand, LeBron James and the Miami Heat did not win it in their first year. You look at the Boston Celtics in the Big Three. They only have 1 championship over the multiple years that they were together. It is hard and it can take time. So as much as there might have been some frustrations or eye rolls, ultimately I think these guys got to continue building that continuity and they got to spend more time together. And I think they will possibly get over that hump.
And look, it's going to be tougher next year.
And I want to say this real quick, Rachel. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just want to say this. We have to remember that speech after the expectation of going to the finals to play the Lakers had just gone out the window. So when somebody's giving a speech, a rah-rah speech about, hey, guys, next year we're going to – you don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Point blank. Yeah. You can be my boy or not. This is not the time for that. You know, let me be mad. Let me, be pissed about the way I played or how I let my team down or whatever. So, we have to throw that in account as well.
No, I think that's an excellent point, because the eye rolling can be as much for the situation, or maybe only for the situation, as opposed to the player or belie any chemistry issues. I will say it's going to get harder next year, right? You've got Steph Curry and the Warriors back, supposedly, at full strength, as much as we can predict with health. And then, of course, you've got Kevin Durant and Kyrie in the East. You've got whoever wins this year's title is going to be something to contend with next year. So I think the path for the Clippers will be tougher. But that being said, they have really smart people in the front office and coaching staff, and I would bet on them to make the adjustments that they need to at least compete in that area. I'm very fascinated to see this team. I don't think their story is over yet by any means. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.